Welcome back to Mike's Mystery, Gertrude Chandler Warner's fifth book in her series of the Boxcar Children. And we are starting on chapter 13 today called The Party. Chapter 13 called The Party. I think this is going to be a little shorter chapter today, the Party. Mr. Carter had said it won't be long now, but it was longer than he thought. Nobody saw the man. Benny and Mike were always watching, but they never saw him. There seemed to be no stranger in town. The pie business was doing wonderfully well. Every day, Mrs. Wood and the girls made 60 or more pies. The boys sold them all. They all made pies together, and they all sold them together. "We are making money," said Jessie. "People are very good to us, and the insurance helped." "Yes, my dear," said Mrs. Wood. "I think I can earn a good living this way." "Yes," said Violet. "We have so much practice we can make them faster and faster." "It was a very good idea," said Henry, "having Mike's mother's place. I never get tired of selling pies and helping you make them. The people in the mine are so glad to get them." Mrs. Wood said, "When you go back to school, I can hire a couple people to help me. I know a couple of wonderful young people who could help." "Some day we ought to have a party," said Jessie. "The people have been so kind." "Maybe we could have a pie party," cried Benny, "and give everybody a pie." Mrs. Wood laughed. "Not a whole pie, Benny," she said. "We could give everybody a piece of pie and some coffee." "And milk," said Benny. "Well, all right, milk," agreed Mrs. Wood. "Have it Saturday night when all the people could come," said Violet. "Have it this Saturday night," shouted Benny. "We can ask Mr. Carter and Mr. Gardner," said Henry. "We can make pies all day long and have the party in the evening." Everyone thought that was a fantastic idea. When they told Mr. Gardner, he laughed. He said, "Go ahead, I'll help you. It will surely be very lonesome here when you four Aldens go back to school in the fall." Mrs. Wood and Jessie and Violet wore white. They made white caps. They made white caps for the boys, too. They made big white aprons. The boys got a printing set and printed Mike's mother's place on the front of their big aprons. They had many cans of milk and hot coffee. Then the people began to come to the party. The two dogs ran around having a wonderful time, like you can see dogs having a great time with a lot of people. They loved everybody, and they were very good dogs. There were plenty of chairs because Mr. Carter had sent them. He sent movies, too. He said, "I have some beautiful pictures of the South Seas." And you can see here's a picture of Mike's mother's place. You guys making the press there. I don't know if you can see that or not. I have to go kind of opposite of what it shows. But anyway, you can see the picture there by the illustrator. The people would love to see the banana trees and the monkeys. When it was dark, the movies began. The people sat in rows and watched the show, and they clapped and laughed at the monkeys. Watch had a chair between Jessie and Benny. He watched the picture with the rest. Next came Mike and then Spot. Mr. Carter sat on the end near the door. All the windows were open and the doors were open, and Benny whispered to Mike, "This would be a good time for somebody to blow up the mine." "No, the watch people are there," Mike whispered. Mike put his arm around Spotty's neck. Everybody looked at the picture except Mike. He never knew why he looked out the door, but he did, and Spotty looked too. He saw a man walking slowly by. Then suddenly he felt the hair on Spotty's neck move. Spotty looked at the door and growled. "Urgh." Mr. Carter heard Spotty's growl. He jumped up and dashed out the door, and Mike and Spotty dashed after him. They all saw a man running in the darkness, but Spotty could run faster than the man. Soon he caught the man's leg. He held him, growling, until Mr. Carter came. Mike never knew how strong Mr. Carter's hands were. The watchman ran up, and soon the man was taken away. "The man in the blue hat!" cried Mike. "Yes, Mike, I think it is," said Mr. Carter. Spotty knew him. Spotty ran faster than he did in the race, said Mike. I guess he did, said Mr. Carter. Now, Mike, don't say a word. Just go back quietly. Can't I tell Ben? Yes, if you whisper. Don't let anyone else know about this. It will spoil the party. Well, that was such a short chapter. I think I'm going to continue on and we'll just finish the book. This is called Ben or Mike. So this will be chapters 13 and 14 in this particular video. Ben or Mike. Chapter 14, the last chapter in the Boxcar Children's Mike's Mystery. When Mike and Spotty went back, Mike whispered, Ben, we just caught the man in the blue hat. You did, said Benny. Did he have on a blue hat? He didn't have on any hat at all, said Mike. I told you he wouldn't. I wish you would have told me before, said Benny. Watch and I would have come too. I had no time. Shh, don't say a word or tell anybody. Then the show was over. The lights went on and everyone sat around eating pie and drinking coffee, and Mr. Carter came back very quietly. The boys looked at him, but they didn't say a word. It's all over, Mr. Carter whispered to Mike and Benny. Where's that man? Asked Mike. Well, he's in jail again. This time, he's going to stay there. That man was wanted in 4 states. You young boys did a lot to help, and you may help me a great deal. And best of all, you didn't talk or tell anyone. Wait till I tell Henry, cried Benny. He thinks I can't stop talking. I'll tell him myself, smiled Mr. Carter, and Jessie will like to know too. She's a mother to you, Benny. Yes, I know, said Benny. She always takes good care of you, Ben, said Mike. Takes care of me, said Benny. Well, takes care, then, agreed Mike. He didn't even start to argue. Benny was quite surprised. With everyone gone, the Woods, the Aldens, and Mr. Carter were left alone in the big room. Mr. Carter said, Please sit down, all of you. I want to tell you something. When they were quiet, he said, The hunt for the man in the blue hat is over. The man has been caught, and the mystery is over. Oh, how? Asked Aunt Jane in excitement. Then Mr. Carter told her about the man. He told her about Spotty growling. You don't need to growl anymore, Spotty, said Mr. Carter. He patted the dog's head. The man had gone away. Well, I am glad, said Violet softly. I know it was exciting for the boys, but I didn't like it at all. No, said Mr. Carter, looking at Violet with a smile. Neither did I. Well, said Mike, now it's all over. It was my mystery, wasn't it? Oh, no, it wasn't, cried Benny. It was mine. Here's a picture of Spotty going after that man in the blue hat. Of course, he's not wearing a hat anymore, as you can see, but he doesn't seem like a very happy or very kind sort of guy there, is he? Anyway, my dog found the blue hat, shouted Mike, but my dog helped him. And Watch found the tin can, said Benny. Then Mike suddenly stopped. He said, Yes, Ben, I think it was your mystery after all, because it was your mine. Well, said Benny slowly, maybe it was yours, because it was your house that burned up. Well, well, said Henry, smiling at Mike. How you have changed, Mr. Mike. That's what I said Mrs. Wood. Mrs. Mike is getting to be a very nice, thoughtful boy. He doesn't argue so much. I said it did him good to play with Benny, and Henry laughed. And you remember I said it was good for Benny to play with Mike. They are quite a pair. Yes, boys, you two are quite a pair, said Mr. Carter. His eyes began to twinkle. Let me give you something to think about. Maybe you two boys will be together next summer too, but not here. Well, where? Cried Jessie. Will we all be together? Well, you children will all be together, but the rest is a secret. Oh, a secret. Grandfather's secret, I suppose, said Henry. He's always a little bit ahead of us. Yes, I can tell you that much. You children and Mike and your grandfather are all included in this secret. And Spotty and Watch? Asked Mike. Yes, Watch, but not Spotty. The children were thinking hard. They had no idea what he was thinking about. Jessie asked the last question. Will you be there, Mr. Carter? No, said Mr. Carter. He looked at Jessie with a funny little smile, and I shall certainly be very sorry for myself that I won't be there. After that, Mr. Carter shook his head at every question. He would not tell another thing of this mystery. Then Mike said, I'm not going to ask Mr. Carter any more. He don't want to tell us. I mean, he doesn't want to tell us. Well, well, you're learning, Mike, said Henry. Maybe you'll be a school teacher yet. Oh, no, I won't. I want to be an FBI guy. An FBI person, said Mike. Yes, and he may, said Mr. Carter. He and Benny talk all the time, but I want you all to know that they knew when to keep still and not talk at all. Benny was thinking. Then he went over to Mr. Carter and put his hand on Mr. Carter's shoulder. I think this really was Mike's mystery, he said. It was his dog that found the hat, and he would have found it if I had stayed home with grandfather and never come out here at all. Good for you, Benny, said everyone. What a kind boy you are, Benny, said Mrs. Wood. That was good of you, Ben, said Mike. Thank you. Mike was so polite that everyone laughed. But it was Mike's mystery forever and ever. And that is the end of the book, The Boxcar Children's Mike's Mystery. So, if you've finished all the chapters, you may certainly take an AR test on this book. Good luck on the test. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you soon.